Good evening, YouTube. My name is KarQ. We're back with another set of hot takes. What episode are we on? 69, 70? Something like that. Here we go. First one, counter hot take. Oh, I think this is in response to my answer in the previous weeks. Counter hot take. I think the stadium hero pool for the most part is fine, but I feel like the only person who shouldn't have been included in release is Mei. Not because she's super strong or anything, but just because she's very annoying to play against. Any hero can be frustrating, don't get me wrong, but Mei just feels like an anti-fun character for a lot of the characters in stadium. Right now, the only character that has any innate counterplay to her is Zarya, Moira, and if you want to stretch, maybe Mercy and Juno. Every niche she fulfills is already covered by another hero. For beams, you have Zarya and Moira. For the anti-dive and the DPS, you have Cass and now Junkrat. Not exactly anti-dive, but you have to play around him a little bit, especially in stadium. And for accessibility, you have Orisa, Ryan, Mercy, Moira, Soldier, and now Junkrat. I'm not saying she's a huge problem or anything, but she's the only character that I and other people I've watched play have gotten annoyed at the mere fact that she's in the match at all. It just feels like the match is less fun when Mei is in it, especially when there's not as many items to build against what she does. I think the annoying part of her kit, which was like the annoying rolling snowball build early on, has been nerfed enough that like I don't really feel the same way, so I don't agree with this take at all. I think a lot of other stadium powers and items have created interactions that can be deemed equally, if not more annoying or more obscene in how powerful they are than just like an annoying ice wall or some slows. For example, for me personally, I think Cassidy with like a Mercy damage boost is actually insane. The fact that he can like two-shot 600 HP people or something like that. But here you didn't specify whether it's the walls or the slows or like the snowball knockback that's the most frustrating or annoying to play against. I really just think it depends on the hero you play. I see where you're coming from, but at the same time, her annoying factor has been dialed down like tenfold in Stadium. I think that she was fine to be on release is the takeaway point here. Next, hot take, Freya's right click doing more than a fully charged Hanzo body shot is ridiculous. It is easier to hit with much faster fire rate with abilities. Plus with her mobility, the angle she can shoot from makes it much more lethal. The fact that it does more than a fully charged Hanzo body shot is not really like a truly fair comparison simply because of the attack speed and the time it takes to like wind up fire and take one shot. Hanzo can technically string together multiple shots a lot quicker without any sort of ammo drawback. Freya has a little bit of an internal reload cooldown, or if she dashes again, that's her, cooldown reset to auto reload or whatever. But, there's pros and cons. Obviously with Freya, she can take more obscene angles, but that does put her at a bit more of an exposed angle as well because she's floating up in the air temporarily. It's like not the fairest comparison. I see where you're coming from, but I don't think it's that ridiculous. So I think writing it as ridiculous is a bit of a hot take. So, you're doing what the video is asking here. You're putting your hot take, but I don't agree with the take. Okay, next. People need to realize that getting a purple item round 2 is not the play. Sure, it might work in niche builds, but purples usually only get good once you've filled your 6 slots. Sure, you can get Eye of the Spider for 25% weapon power for 14k, but you can also get 30% weapon power for 12.5k by combining 2 blues and a green. As long as you have space, greens and blues are always more valuable. This is a true statement unless the purple item has a specific hero-specific trait that is needed for your build. For example, rushing a purple item on Devo, the one where like if you can hold Matrix, you can still auto-fire your gun or something like that. That's different than rushing Eye of the Spider. But this is not a hot take at all. This is just a true fact in Stadium that blues and greens have better cash economy, effective value. I don't know what the term is, but I remember you seeing it in League of Legends where it's like you can assess an item's average value based on how much it costs divided by the stats it provides, and that's the same concept here. Blues and greens give more stats on a per cash basis. Hot take, the argument that Kiriko gets more skins than others because she's popular is invalid when you consider the fact that Ramattra, who has been in the game just as long as Kiriko, is arguably better in terms of character design, gameplay, and backstory, and plays and impactfulness in the lore has been getting breadcrumbs compared to the glorified kawaii side character. What do you mean that's invalid? She's popular from a player playing perspective. Ramattra has a notoriously low pick rate in the game. Players do not pick Ramattra as often as they should. He's been getting picked a lot more in professional play, but even if when you look at the raw pick rate stats across the entire Overwatch population, Ramattra is picked infinitely less than Kiriko. And Kiriko is easier to sell skins for because more people will play her and people are more likely to buy a skin for her. So this was certainly a take saying that it's invalid for her popularity when you're arguing that Ramattra is like, you know, is better in design. That even if things are better, it doesn't mean they necessarily are popular. For example, there's you know, that popular person in high school or whatever, right? Doesn't mean they're a better person in character design, personality traits, or whatever. They just happen to be popular at this current time. So like they're gonna get the benefits. Hot take: as a Junkrat main, a lot of the items that require critical hits just don't work, and the devs need to consider removing or reworking the items to suit his kit. I'm not sure if this is a hot take, and I'm not gonna lie, I've not clicked Junkrat in Stadium, so I don't really have anything to add to this. Does it actually not work? I don't know. I need more people to confirm in the comments here. I'll leave it up to you. Here's a take here. Season 17's buff to the DPS anti-heal passive was a little too much. As an Ana, I no longer feel like I can heal a squishy teammate being assassinated by a Sombra or Genji without committing my nade. I have a similar effect with Brig where Inspire is just tickling myself or my team. I'm a returning player, so it's likely a skill issue, but I'm curious if players at a higher level feel the same. I think this is a little bit of a bias because like they only changed it by like 5%, and I don't think it's actually as noticeable as people perceive. And honestly, in general, if your teammate is being jumped by a Sombra or a Genji, you can totally commit your nade. It's actually probably better to swing the fight, burst them down, and you have a chance to actually kill them. And like, you know, the 5% on your Ana heals when someone's getting jumped is like a difference of not like 5 or 10 HP. If your teammates live with the sliver, sure, you can be like, damn, that's a DPS passive. Or they died at the perfect break point, but a lot of the cases they died because like they got hit with like a bigger chunk, or like or like your timing was off a little bit, you know what I mean? Like 5% is not going to change that interaction too much. Some edge cases, but like in 9 out of 10 interactions, it would not have had an effect there. You probably should have committed your nade anyways. So I don't think it was too much. Hot take. Ooh, this one's certainly a take. The common consensus around Overwatch is always wrong. Overwatch 1 was an irredeemable pile of garbage. Overwatch 2 was the first time the devs had an actual vision of how to fix that mess, and yet were criticized endlessly for dumb stuff like 5v5 being somehow worse than 6v6 or the game having quote-unquote no soul. Now that they've stopped fixing core issues, Sombra is still a problem, healing still makes fights annoying, counters still too strong and too necessary, abilities like Suzu and Sleep Dash still unchanged, making the game stagnant. They're getting praise for a throwaway mode like Stadium that's just an inferior way to play the real game. You know, this is what the video is for here. We need people to give takes like this, because this is content. Unfortunately, Mezurashi, I'm gonna have to disagree with you here. The common consensus of Overwatch was not always wrong. Overwatch 1 was not an irredeemable pile of garbage. Maybe near the end of its life cycle, but to say like the first couple of years were garbage is a little dishonest. Let's be real here. It was the game of the year. It's the reason why some people fell in love with the game. Be honest, it was a great game early on until issues popped up. Overwatch 2, honestly, you say they had an actual vision to fix that mess. I disagree. I actually think early on Overwatch 2, they were still a little confused on what they wanted to do. Their vision was not as dialed in as it is now in the last year. I think your vision is easier to see once you have a few more years of feedback, and your sole focus of dev time is now to work on, you know, this specific game. They needed the first 2022, 2023, and for the most part 2024 to really dial in on player issues, on like what's wrong with the game now at this age, the evolution of the player base, the evolution of gaming in general, of hero shooters. How do you have longevity? How do you make the game better? The vision is better now. In 2019, the vision kind of got muddied with like all the resources being put into the PvE and whatnot. But yeah, in any case, now that they've stopped fixing core issues, I disagree. They're trying their best to continue to navigate through core issues that a large chunk of the player base has complained about, and that's what they try to do. They've tackled Sombra here and there. Maybe they didn't hit the mark, but it looks like they're trying to fix issues that make the game frustrating for a lot of players. Counters being too strong. I'm curious to see what counters are too strong right now in 2025. You could have made that argument back with Mauga being released, how he countered a lot of the tanks and made it super unfun. But like now that all that's been dialed back, and you have hero bans to kind of like, you know, curate your ranked experience, at least have some agency in that involvement by like adding your vote. You know, sometimes your hero ban vote or your map vote will not, you know, go through for what you want, but it's certainly more likely that you can curate the experience that you want, right? What now? What counters are still too strong? And then abilities like Suzu and Sleep Dart, for me, I've always said they're a necessary evil. You kind of just have to maybe dial back the cooldown if it's really that bad. But like sometimes I see clips of you know, a Reinhardt charging and then the Kiriko Suzus them and then they lose their mind. But what's the difference between the Reinhardt charging somebody and a Zarya bubbling them, then they live? Same concept, right? Like these abilities always existed, and I've always felt that people just kind of like cherry pick stuff that has always sort of existed existed in a different way, but they didn't complain about it before, but they're just looking for any reason now for something to blame. You know what I mean? Like going back to that Ryan example, I don't know why I think I just saw a clip of it recently of someone losing their mind after Akiri Suzu'd their charge target, but like what's stopping them from getting Roadhog hooked out of their charge, or them getting slept, or them getting, or the person they're charging getting bubbled? There were already so many ways in 2016 to quote unquote counter it, and all of a sudden Suzu and Sleep Dart is a problem in 2025. I think people just really want to play the game without any of the unfun stuff because their attention span is so short. But that's what makes the game fun in terms of like, you have parameters, you have answers. People just want to play dive and play characters unchecked, as in like play stuff and have no CC in the game, so they're always able to move and never have their character inhibited. But if you have that, then the game will get stale and boring very fast. I'm telling you, you need these things. You need limitations on what your hero can do, or else certain archetypes will just run rampant, and then maybe those players may have fun for a bit, I guarantee you, but they're gonna get bored, right? And then other people who are playing the game will not have any more fun because the hyper mobile heroes can just do whatever they want because there's no CC, no Sleep Darts, and no Suzus to slow down what they're doing. So like, what fun is it for the other 66% of players if 33% of the players are playing these dive DPS heroes? That gets stagnant. And then now they're getting praised for a throwaway mode like Stadium. That just means you don't like the mode, and that's fine, right? I don't actually, I would assume that like a third of the player base is playing Stadium, but the 66% are probably playing Quick Play and Ranked and 6v6 and whatever, and the other core game modes. I think it's fine to exist separately. It's totally fine to spin it off and have those coexist. Like COD Zombies wasn't really a throwaway for COD, but it's just a separate mode that some people will casually like to enjoy, and I think that's what Stadium is. It just seems like you're unnecessarily gatekeeping a little bit. That's enough for that one. Let's move on. 6v6 would work better if it were actually balanced and if they hadn't nerfed a lot of the quality of life things for tanks. Bring perks to 6v6. I agree. I actually do think they could add more resources into 6v6 and make it more of a core mode. 5v5 is their core intended way to play the game in this current day and age, but I do think 6v6 has proven that a lot of people are interested in the mode, and I do want to see them add more care into the game. Do separate balance. I know it sounds like a nightmare, but like, I do think separate balance for the 6v6 mode is not necessarily a bad idea. Just small tweaks here and there. Because as it stands, whenever they balance, they're balancing for the 5v5 game mode, but that means if they change Zarya, for example, in 5v5, the Stadium mode Zarya also draws from that balance state, and so does the 6v6 minus the HP or whatever, right? I do think separating each of them may sound a little confusing at first, but I do think that's necessary for the future of the game. And luckily in season 18, they're adding the advanced hero stats page where you can actually see their true numbers baked into the game, so you don't have to go to the Wikipedia to see like a soldier's fall off damage range or whatever. But if it happens to be that soldier's fall off range is now going to be tuned separately for your different game modes, having that in the game would be very nice for me personally. Maybe that's a little too convoluted for your average casual player, but the counter argument is that the casual players never cared about that stuff to begin with, so they wouldn't even notice about separate tuning. You know what I mean? My take is that the Stadium announcer isn't annoying during the games unless he gets who got the kill wrong, but he won't because it's code and program. But he is very distracting between rounds. I don't need the reminder of what powers there are or what I'm supposed to do. Just let me think. Easiest solution is to have a Stadium announcer caster audio volume slider, and then you're allowed to mute that specific choice. Because like right now in the audio settings, you can actually mute like hero voice lines and sound effects and the music and whatever. Just give us an extra dial for the announcer in Stadium, and I think a lot of people will be happy with that. Next, all right, hot take, final one of the week. Sombra is not broken. People just refuse to learn how to counter her. Think of a popular stealth character from another team-based shooter, like a spy from TF2. At this point, almost every player is able to spy check and completely deny spy value because of their experience with the character. Overwatch has an even more generous system where upon touching a stealth Sombra, she's even revealed to the whole team with an audio indicator. People got used to Tracer and now she's just an annoyance per her design, so why can't they learn to play into Sombra? While the largest portion of the Sombra complaints are like your casual and maybe like early metal ranked players, and you say this, you use the spy check TF2 argument, but I do think like there's not as many new people entering TF2 versus Sombra. You ask any like longtime veteran Overwatch player who's like pretty moderately high ranked, some of them will still say Sombra's annoying, but most of them be like, yeah, you can sort of deal with her. It's all right. And that's the argument we're kind of making with this, the TF2 spy thing is like people who are dealing with spy have been playing TF2 for like so long that they're used to it. But because Sombra is a nuisance in your average to mid ranks where there's always like new players entering and like navigating stealth heroes for the first time. And stealth has always been a mechanic that's very hard to deal with as a new player. It is a skill check. I've always said that stealth is a skill check. Rogues in World of Warcraft, Evelynn and Twitch in League of Legends, when they just show up and sneak and kill a noob, they just be like, damn, stealth is OP. Shaco showing up, that's OP. But your top players, you'd like never see Shaco players. I mean, you have a few, but like, you know, in pro play, you just don't really see this kind of stuff get as much value as it is perceived to be getting, if that makes sense. All in all, this take is, I don't think she's broken. So I actually agree with that take, that Sombra isn't broken. But I would say it's more if Sombra just isn't fun to play against for your average player. And that's why the voices are very loud with this one. In general, people just don't like things that feel uncounterable, even if they are. And then we can see this in Marvel Rivals right now with Black Panther, because he just shows up and just like one-shots you. It just feels annoying, even though there are ways to counter it. But it's hard to get your average coordinated team, or get your team in a pickup ranked game or quick play game to do the thing that needs to be done to push them out, poke them out, spy check them, look for them, heal for your team. In coordinated environments, they always get less value. Maybe not always. I never want to use absolutes, because I think we just saw a lot of Black Panthers pop off in the recent Marvel Ignite. But like, there are more answers to it if you play together with cohesion and communication, which is a hard ask, is the takeaway point here. Anyways, add some more hot takes into the comments. Happy to take a look at them. I'll see you guys in the next episode.